Hi, my name is Jen Crelly, and I'm going to be going over my capstone over reteaching using differentiation strategies in the mathematics classroom. The purpose of me wanting to do a differentiation study is basically to take all of the research that I've been able to find and educate myself on and really use the differentiation portion in a reteach setting as opposed to just implementing it in the classroom on a regular basis. I wanted to see what would happen with the reteach concept. And this is all going to be taking place in a mathematics class, 6th grade math class. The results of the study are also going to help provide, hopefully, a better understanding for myself as to how to implement a professional development to raise awareness over what I find and over differentiation in not only my school setting but the district setting as well. The rationale behind wanting to take on this particular topic was that differentiation is such a broad topic and there is very little research over reteaching, and so I wanted to be able to shed some light onto that in the mathematics set. I also wanted to be able to take a look at if differentiation really is a necessity in the classroom and if it makes a difference. Does it really affect our student scores or understanding or attitudes in the classroom? And again, to make sure that I'm sharing that knowledge with my fellow educators by raising awareness. The literature review that I was able to conduct really kick-started whenever I was able to define differentiation and using Tomlinson, who has a ton of books and a lot of research out there for people in general. Throughout her whole entire readings of just the book that I read over the foundational portion of differentiation, there are 3 aspects that really kind of kept resonating throughout her literature. And it was being able to identify the readiness of our students, making sure that their work is not too easy and not too difficult, making sure that the interest of our students is taken into account when we are implementing classroom work. And in order to make that section work, we have to be able to know their learning profile, which is learning their background, making sure that we are taking their cultural aspects into account, and making sure that we are being equitable in that way. Dixon, McConnell, and Hardin also discuss throughout the literature about how differentiation is not necessarily something that you come in the classroom and you just do, but it's a philosophy of teaching. The teacher is really the driving force behind differentiation and is the person who is addressing the needs of the learners and adapting lessons to making sure that they are not a one-fit-all, but that they are addressing the needs of all learners in the classroom. Differentiation is defined by Dixon, McConnell, and Hardin as being able to take student differences into account in designing opportunities for each student to engage with information and ideas and to develop essential skills. The methods of differentiation, George really kind of ties back into what Tomlinson says with the learning profile, that one method is that we have to be able to know our students, we have to be able to know their background, their family life, and again, taking into their culture and making sure that we are addressing those needs inside of our classroom. Anderson discusses that we need to look at the methods of differentiation into certain segments, that we're not just giving students extra time or a multiplication chart and saying that this is differentiation, but that we are offering choices for students, that we are being flexible in our classroom, that we have ongoing assessments to address the needs of what our students are currently struggling with, and making sure that we integrate that creativity portion in our classrooms. Koblin talks about 3 areas that are definitely going to take major consideration into this particular study. And this is the open-ended, tiered, and scaffolding methods that you can implement inside of your classroom. The tiered are what we're going to kind of be looking at, and the tiered is almost like tiered and scaffolding are very close to one another, but the tiered activities are expanded upon whenever you take a look at what Kettler and Curlis talk about in their table as far as developing tiered activities. We see that we need to identify objects and concepts that are being taught in the classroom, that we're making sure that they're on grade level, and then making sure that whatever activity we start with, the next activity has a higher level of rigor to it. and that we're grouping students according to assessed levels of readiness. And all of these aspects are taken into consideration during the study. Whenever we're taking a look at differentiation in the classroom, Mansell and Maynard had an interesting approach to seeing that students inside of classes that are often struggling, sometimes it can be considered a behavioral issue and can be behavioral and or create behavior issues inside of our classrooms. And O'Rourke kind of comes in and talks about the reasoning behind some of this occurring as that the concepts are not fully developed in some of these students, therefore they feel inferior in their classroom and other behaviors start to manifest themselves. They also both talk about how differentiation can come into play and help benefit the students by helping them feel successful without being individualized and embarrassed. That if we're differentiating for everybody in the classroom, then everybody is working on what they need, and students are not being categorized or made to feel like they are the only ones who are struggling in the class. Looking at the reteaching portion of it, since that is the major concept behind all of this, Laley and Miller are really the ones that we're focused on. And they discuss the fact that reteaching is important because it helps revisit ideas that were not firmly planted in our students' minds the first time around. And it's a post-instructional strategy that helps raise student achievement level. It gives them a second chance. And some areas that Laley and Miller discussed that you can go through and you can do some reteaching with are warm-ups, one-on-one student conferences, after-school tutorials, and whole group activities. The whole group activities is where we will be focusing on. The professional development piece of where the case study will be going into, Tukey kind of looks at being able to make sure that when we are creating professional developments, whether it is a teacher or as an administrator, with differentiation, that we have to take small steps in implementing this. We have to make sure that teachers are not jumping full force into it because it can be very overwhelming, and that we are taking those little pieces of information and slowly implementing them in our classroom. Hedrick kind of goes ahead and backs this up with talking about the fact that this is what they would define as their novice stage. And one of their quotes that Hedrick talks about is that the staff development for novice must focus on addressing their current limits of knowledge, skills, attitudes, and habits of mind to provide successful experiences, valuable feedback, and encouragement. So this is the foundational stage. This is the stage that the basics of differentiation are going to be implemented here. Some other things that Tomlinson goes ahead and talks about to tie in with all of these is that the key to making differentiation successful is to make sure that we're sharing it and making sure that we are scaffolding it not only for our students in the classroom and for ourselves, but that we're scaffolding it whenever we are coaching or when we are providing professional development for our teachers to learn how to implement this particular strategy in their own classrooms. And again, that goes back to Tukey talking about taking small steps in the classroom. This particular study is going to occur or has occurred in the Southeast Houston portion of Texas. It is a Title I middle school, and it is a 5th and 6th grade campus. The classroom that was exposed to these activities was a 6th grade math intervention class. Out of these students, out of all the students that are in intervention, over 95% of them have not passed one of the state assessment STAR tests in over 2 years. They are currently labeled Tier 2 students, which means that the state and that the district is obligated to go through and help to intervene with their mathematic concepts and to provide extra assistance in that manner. These classes are a lot smaller than what you would normally see in a regular classroom. Class sizes normally range anywhere between 10 to 14 students. Class B that we will be talking about is actually broken down to 5 students at this point in the year. And so these are much smaller classrooms. The steps of the study, the students were given an original target test, which was provided by the district, and the students had already taken that test. Based on the results, the students were grouped on their lowest SE for day 1, their second lowest SE for day 2, and then the third day, it was a reflection day for them to reflect on the experiences that they had in class, to provide feedback for myself. And then day 4, they would actually be taking their post-test, and that is where we will be able to see if there was any type of growth in their differentiated SEs that they took place in. Here are the current scores of what the students were able to do on their test. And as you can see, that it is color coded. The yellow represents their lowest SE. Their green is their second lowest SE. Over here in the red, you have the ratio of the correct to the total on their lowest SE, and then their second lowest SE. And then provided over here in kind of the light gray blue area is their overall percentage grade. Class 1, or Class A as we will be calling them, have 10 students in them. Class B has a total of 5 students, but only 4 of their data will show up in this particular section. The student number 5 was actually absent one day and never came in to retake her test, so her data will not be shown. Also, student 4, if you will take note that at the bottom portion it says that they will not be taking a retest. Students who score a 70 or higher are not expected to, and so she has opted out of taking a retest portion of that study. So Class A will have all 10 students in the pre and post test, and then Class B, we will see 4 students here in their original testing, but only 3 students in their post-test scores. Going back to the methods for a quick second, taking a look at the tiered activities, the 3 tiered activities per SEs, based on the chart that I just showed you, the students were grouped, and day 1, they were given the option in each SE that they were expected to go to. They had 3 choices. The first choice provided them a link to a video that they were allowed to watch on their own laptop and to answer questions that would help guide them, hopefully, through the next level of activities. The second activity was more of a card sort and doing simple process problems and just showing their work with that. Some of them incorporated some academic vocabulary in there as well. The third activity is the higher level rigor one, and that is the one that we'll go ahead and take a look at what the students can apply in a word problem scenario, being able to justify their answers, being able to analyze what the question is asking. Some examples of the activity 2 that the students would go through. These are not all the cards for each activity, but it just gives you a slight idea of what the students were expected to do in activity 2. Activity 1, like I said, was just a link to a video and simple questions that would help guide them through their video. Activity 3 were more of the higher level thinking word problems that students were going to be expected to answer, most likely on the state assessment that they would be taking later on in April. As far as the results go, day 1, students were grouped according, as you see on the screen, and what was found was that students often would start with the card sort activity and doing just the process problems or the matching and being able to identify the key vocabulary. And then from there, they would choose on their own to go up to the higher level word problems. At no point did any student decide to do a higher level activity first and then go down to a lower level. It was interesting to see with the students being given choices, they always chose to go to at least one level higher of what they had just been working on. Students were grouped and worked, sometimes individually, sometimes with a partner. They were given that choice as well. So in 6.7a, the two students that worked, those two students that were there had the three choices of the video, the card sort activity, and then the word problems. Again, in 6.7b and 6.7d, no students were assigned to 6.7c the very first day. And again, all students either chose to start with a video and then go to the card sort, or card sort and go to the word problems. Class B was the exact same. All students in that class as well decided to work together and decided to start it. Both groups decided to start at card sort and go up to word problems. Both classes on day one, you could see that there was a slight disconnect in being able to connect the knowledge from the card sorts to the word problems. And the word problems that they struggled with were the ones that were being able to analyze what the question was asking. Day two was very, very similar to day one. Students were grouped again according to their second lowest SE at this point. So day one, they were given 1 full hour to work on their lowest SE. Day two, they were given a full hour to work on their second lowest SE. And what I found really interesting is that two of the students that were in 6.7D who were working together started off watching the video and taking notes and filling in their notes section, and skipped from that all the way up to the word problems. And you could definitely see in their work that they very much struggled with being able to connect that. And so tying that back into the tiered activities, you can see that the student jumping from the lowest level of rigor to the highest level definitely was not in their favor. Day three, students were given the following questions on the Promethean board to answer on their own sheet of paper. Students went ahead and provided feedback from myself, and it was really interesting to see that the students throughout the entire time were taking pride in their work, taking ownership in their work. The engagement level in class was higher, and students, based on their answers in this particular section, really went ahead and were able to tell me that the differentiation portion was a lot more enjoyable for them. Students, I believe it was over 90% more positive feedback about stations being done in this particular way than in previous times. Day four, students went ahead and took their post-test, and as you can see, these are their results. Again, the yellow is going to be their lowest SE, the green is their second lowest SE, and again, we have the ratio of correct to total in both SEs, and then their overall percentage scores. And again, if you note at the bottom, it goes ahead and explains student 4 and 5 why they are not included in Class B. Another chart goes ahead and shows Class A's overall average from the first test to their overall average on the retest, and in the middle it shows whether or not they have increased or decreased. Most of the students were able to increase by at least one question. The student that decreased by 30%, there is a reasoning behind that that he made me aware of. And so again, building that relationship that Tomlinson and George had talked about in the beginning let me know that why there was such a major decrease in his particular score. Overall, my conclusions of being able to look at this was seeing that the students actually improved in their two lowest SEs, but as you can see in this particular chart, the students increased in their SEs as far as the two that we worked on, but when you look back at their overall scores, they did not increase as much because of the decline of the other SEs that were not particularly covered and weren't retaught or gone over. Therefore, I can conclude that spiraling, even though differentiation does seem to work and does help with the ownership of the learning and engagement, spiraling is going to be key in making sure that these students can go ahead and bring their scores up even higher. Throughout the professional development that I would like to implement, that will be one of the key points that I make to my colleagues and to other participants that take a look at this study.